Hello, everybody, and welcome to another podcast. And this time I'm going to be speaking with AC Stauble and Isaac Hill, better known as the Plant Cunning team. Should I call you a team, or how do you kind of see yourselves? I'm not quite sure how you.
Partners in crime?
Partners in crime. Well, we'll go with that. That's
Partners
good.
in law.
I like that. So I'll
Um,
just do a little bit of background about why I'm speaking to these two great people today. They very kindly invited me on. They have their own podcast called the Plant Cunning Podcast, which is very popular, and I recommend everybody check that out. So I'll put all the links for that so people can go and explore. And they very kindly interviewed me. What was it, like 2 months ago now? Time flies so quick, I lose track. So
Yeah.
yeah, a couple of months ago, they were kindly reviewing my book on Rasa Shastra, the Indian alchemy book. And I thought I'd repay them the compliment by asking them back and just introducing, because obviously every podcast has its kind of followers and its interested parties. So it's a good way of cross-pollinating, isn't it? We all get to sort of share. So everybody gets to a look in what everybody else is doing. So it kind of works nicely like that. So I thought I'd invite the team back on, or partners in crime. So, do you want to go ahead and maybe explain a little bit for the benefit of people? I suppose the most interesting thing is actually what is plant cunning, but obviously introduce yourselves as well. So, over to you, whoever wants to start.
Yeah. The Plant Cunning Podcast is a weekly podcast that we
sometimes mostly weekly,
mostly
sometimes
weekly,
It's
bi-weekly,
flexible.
sometimes less. But we try to be regular.
pretty regular. So we interview people that are wise to the ways of plants and into magic and astrology and gardening, permaculture, just sort of ways of engaging with the earth and with nature. So we interview a wide range of really interesting folks, and it's been such a pleasure to be able to meet people like you and other mentors and people we look up to during our interviews. So that's one of the main reasons that we started it, but also just to make connections and to be a bridge from some of our different areas of interest, like astrology and herbalism and
Mm.
gardening and nature. So it's been a real pleasure. Do you want to explain what plant cunning means?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so the cunning folk were the village healers and fix-it people, because they cunning used to mean just knowing how to do things, having
Mm.
skill in
Mm.
in things. And especially things like healing people, like knowing all the plants and like knowing divination, astrology, magic, these kind of things. It was a traditional folk healer.
Mm.
And there was, and I find this to be the case in a lot of traditional cultures. The healers don't just focus on the body. You need to be able to tell when there's a spiritual ailment, if there's psychic attack, if there's ancestor problems. All those. It's a lot more holistic,
Mm.
actually holistic than we think of doctors these days, because we live in a material reductionist society.
Mm.
So obviously, the spiritual element has been taken out of healing. So we try to bring that back. Also, yes, that's why we're plant cunning, because we're like focusing on that village healer and bringing it into the modern day, interviewing people from lots of different traditions,
Mm.
lots of different practitioners. We interview herbalists. We interview Ayurvedic practitioners. We interview Jyotishis, astrologers, magic practitioners. We also interview like spiritual practitioners. And it's also just an excuse for me to talk to people who I'm interested in talking to.
Isn't that why we all do it though? I think that was one of Joe Rogan's thing, wasn't it? He said that he
Yeah.
got it because he basically just wanted to talk to certain people. So
Mhm.
people love to tell you what they're doing. So it's a great inroad.
It is,
It
yeah.
is, yeah. And there's a lot of people that I wouldn't be able to have a conversation with unless we had this podcast. So, and then we get to broadcast those conversations for anybody who wants to listen. So I
Mm.
think it's a win-win all around.
Mm. I'd say also, as far as you're concerned, this isn't just it's more than just a podcast. I mean, you've got, like, obviously
Yeah.
you've got the apothecary behind you. You're kind of really into making stuff. You're doing all this stuff, and you've got this amazing property. I mean, maybe if you give people a little bit of background about how you've got this kind of amazing barn in there. Is it really rural? I mean, can you actually, what's the nearest town to you? You're kind of quite out in the sticks, aren't you?
So it's pretty rural. It's not like in Montana or Alaska or something, or even maybe West Virginia, but about 10 minutes to the closest, 10, 15 minutes to the closest town, like half an hour to go to like an actual like town with like a big grocery store and so on. But like most of our, we have a lot of farms around. We have a lot of woods around. There's state forests around. We have a lot of Amish neighbors. We have a lot of there's actually a wide variety of neighbors that we've got. Like there's more like Trumpy folks. There's more like there's actually our one neighbor is a old beatnik from he's in his 90s now, but he was actually like a beatnik.
He was like a poet, musician, artist from the city, and moved up here to do art and have a cattle farm.
So how much of the stuff are you actually able to grow there then? So you're saying it's a farm. Was the property you're in now originally a farm, and you've kind of converted it to your needs, or was it kind of more just like unkept land and you've moved in and then worked it? How did that work?
Yeah, the property was originally a farm. I think it was a bigger farm that had been subdivided. Yeah. So we have this little like triangle with 2 barns and the house and 7.5 acres. Some of it is wooded. And so it was mostly just hayfield. And the prior owner was diligent about not using pesticides because she believed she got cancer from having pesticides sprayed overhead on her family farm as a kid. So she was like, no pesticides here, which is really great. So it was just, organic hayfield, which is kind of the ideal starting point for being able to put in rows of garden beds. So the first year we did put in a few rows, and we planted garlic right off the bat, and some fruit and nut trees. And then we used the contour of the land to put in more beds the next year. So we grow lots of different medicinal herbs and fruit and nut. Isaac's been on a huge blueberry kick. So we have like how many blueberries now?
We're at 50 blueberry plants.
Yeah. So, and more coming.
But yeah, so I was trained in permaculture, and that's kind of the way I'm maybe like post permaculture now, but it's still it's an amazing system for being able to think about about the land and how to grow things and how to orient things and design. So we do a lot of we have forest gardens in process. We got this place in 2019. So it was right
just before the
lockdown.
Yeah, before everything kind of went crazy.
Yeah, and all the house prices doubled or tripled around here. So we were very lucky. We got like the perfect spot.
And I did have an astrology reading for my birthday done in January of 2019, and the astrologer told me to buy, if we're going to buy this year, because things are going to really change in 2020. So
certainly did.
Had that little impetus of like, okay, let's like really ramp up our search. So
yeah, we were looking for a while, and then things fell through and so on, and then we were on our way to see one house, and this house popped up on Zillow, and we called our realtor, and she got us to see the place an hour later, and the agent was still here, like putting up the sign. So we were the first people to see it, and then we got it. We put an offer in that day, and it was like that's the kind we had some help. I think.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how much did you have to? Was there a lot of renovation work wanted? I mean, did you have to make it all kind of specialized for what you were doing? Did you have to change things a lot, or was it?
Well, we're still doing a lot of work. The room that we're in, which is the kitchen. It's our herb kitchen. If you want to take a little look, it's
amazing. It's got kind of everything there. It's really super professional.
Lucy's better at it because it's her kitchen. Base sink, got oils over there, and and there's herbs. This is like the kitchen product making, and this was just a falling down mud room. Everything was rotting, so we had to fix this bit by bit. That was one of the first projects.
Put a new roof in, new floor, walls.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of work, like put a big porch on the front. things like that. Clean. The barns were filled
that's
with. Yeah.
That's the main thing. Like we moved in and it was sold as is, which meant full of stuff, like floor to ceiling, every room. They cleaned out the fridge, so that was really nice. But
That was
everything
nice.
else,
Yeah.
everything else was just full of stuff. So that was a big project, just like clearing things out, sorting things for goodwill and donations or trash. We moved 6 giant full-size dumpsters and as well as lots of trailer loads of trash out of here in order to get the barns usable for our events. We do like music events and the Plant Cunning Conference here. So it took us a few years to do that. But that was things we could do, it's like we can pick things up and put them down and sort, but we couldn't install a septic or a well. And that was all already here. We had electric, septic well. So we were very, very lucky with this find in our price range too, which was not very much. So it was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we're working with a small budget, but
Yeah.
I think everybody does these days. Nobody's got a big budget unless you're kind of like just doing it to sell on again and make a profit or whatever. But we're all kind of living within our means.
Yeah.
So looking behind you, you've got all kinds of stuff there. You've got like tinctures and you've got oils. So are you kind of like how much of that are you making in house, or is any sort of coming in and then you're putting it together, or you literally, I guess how much of the herbal ingredients are you able to grow? Is it a good proportion of?
Yeah, I try to be as self-sufficient as possible with my herbal products. So it's about 90%. There's a few things that I can't grow that I like to have on hand. But like a lot of it, I'll either wild harvest myself or we grow ourselves. So like the reishi mushroom came from the woods and the hemlock trees.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
In our house. And we got some Jamaican dogwood and or Pisidia bark when we were in the Keys, like Key West, Florida. It's the only place in the US that it grows, is the very southern part of Florida. So when we travel, we like to try to like pick up certain herbs. Like we got some Vitex berries in California one year. So a lot of it, I would say like 90% is my own that I've wild crafted or grown myself.
How about sort of drying stuff? What's your kind of weather like there? Are you able to dry stuff easily, or?
It's a little humid here. It's not as bad as like Florida or like Hawaii, things like that. But yeah, we have some strings up in the kitchen here, so I'll hang bundles, and I have this amazing drying rack that is actually like a laundry drying rack for people to lay out their clothes. And it's just like nets in layers. So I hang that from the ceiling and dry herbs in that. And then sometimes I have to finish in dehydrators that I plug into the wall. So I have some, electric dehydrators. So things like the calendula and the red clover and roots or fungi that are just kind of stubborn. Like I'll just pop it in the dehydrator for a few hours and it'll crisp them right up.
Wow.
Yeah, and solar dehydrator is in the plants. So we don't get a big solar dehydrator. But we also we'll dry our mushrooms out in the something fell. We dry our mushrooms out in the sun. Gets the vitamin D, and then we'll crisp it up. We'll finish it in the electric dehydrators just to make sure there's no extra moisture in there.
Yeah, I find that's the biggest problem I've got with making anything here in the UK is like it rains a lot,
right?
And it's wet and it's real, but you literally get a 3-month window. You've got like June, July, August, that's it. Outside of that, it's a bonus if you get any good weather, but drying's always the big problem, so I have to go to dehydrators, but like we had in my discussion, I'm not really sort of so reliant on the herbs. For me, herbs are just means to an end. For you, obviously, it's the end product. But it's great that you can grow all that and process them, and it's going directly into the product. So super fresh, super available. So that's amazing.
That's why I love tinctures too. Is you don't have to worry so much about drying and storing if you're just taking the fresh plant and chopping or blending it with the alcohol. And I've been getting into doing like double extracts on not just the fungi and the roots, but doing even like the aromatic plants of making a tea to dilute the tincture instead of just using water. So like 60% alcohol, 40% water. I'm using the 40% as tea, and it's like becoming my new way of doing things. It's been really nice.
So it's basically like teas, oils, balms. Did you say you're doing like herbal
Yeah.
balms? And so it's anything mineral, anything a bit alchemical, or is that yet to be worked into the
Really,
gums and resin, something like that? Or you're doing the reishi, which is obviously great. That's amazing.
yeah, I've done some like pine pitch. I've done propolis, which isn't it's like a very resinous material. And we incorporated some quartz into an algal election of an algal
We did
astrological oil.
that was the Pleiades.
Oh, Pleiades.
Yeah, we did a Pleiades
Then
oil.
it was diamond with algal, or
It was diamond with algal.
diamond with algal. Yeah. So I'm starting to experiment more with Isaac on astrological like oils and things like that. So I feel like that's on the up and up for me, is incorporating more of the mineral medicines.
Are you finding that's kind of something are you getting more drawn to that because of you're bringing in, because Isaac, you're doing the Jyotish as well. So are you is that drawing on Western astrology, or is that more the Vedic?
Yeah, so I first started studying astrology in the Renaissance Western astrology tradition with Chris Warnock, and that I started more with the astrological magic, Picatrix style. So most of my of like electing talismans or electing things like that are using the Picatrix rules, and it was translated, like the original is Gayat al-Hakim, and that is translated into the Picatrix in the court of Alfonso in Spain, and the Alfonso X, I believe. I don't know, but so it was the basis. Yeah, it's old, but it's got some really interesting. It's a compendium of all the different astrological magic texts from that time period, and it was the basis for people like Ficino and Agrippa and the rest of the Western astrological magic tradition. So that's kind of like my first tradition is that situation.
And they definitely get into using minerals and like
Yeah.
animal bones and animal parts. Yeah. And
But in
herbs.
making like talismans, so I'll make like a talisman. You use the right stone with the right metal, the right herb, and you do that at the right astrological time. And sometimes these elections, you get once in a lifetime. Some of them, like Saturn takes 20 years to go. So to get an exalted Saturn, and you might only get one or two really good elections when Saturn's in Libra. So, and I'm using tropical zodiac for that and everything. But there's all these fixed star elections too. There's a lot of fun stuff. But now I'm also studying in the tradition of Vedic astrology with Freedom Cole and Sanjay Roth. So that tradition, the Kutananda Das tradition. And I've been doing that very intensively. And that's sort of my main way of doing charts. So I read charts, read charts a lot. I'm starting to read a lot of charts. I'm moving up into doing it more professionally, like semi-pro. But that I use the Vedic astrology to do, because it's very, very good at being able to see exactly what's wrong with somebody, like where it's like you're looking at a karmic map, seeing where the karma is causing problems, and then being able to remedy it. So like that's stuff that you don't really like see in Western astrology, and this is from like the real tradition that has been doing this for many generations. So yeah, I kind of compartmentalize my astrology, and so when we're doing an election for the Pleiades, I'm using more of the Western Renaissance rules, because these talismans, there aren't, as far as I know, these aren't in Vedic astrology. Like the way that they do them, the Picatrix style astrological talismans. So I use the rules that I learned with that system. For that system, I don't mix and match too much.
So if you were going to do, let's say you had a talisman for a particular type of oil, how would you bring the two together? Is it about preparing it at a time, or do you stand the bottle onto like a mandala or something, or do you just put it under starlight? Or what's the principle?
Okay, yeah. So for doing an astrological talisman, it's the basic process that I use is you have the right time. That's the main important thing, is you have the right time. And for for instance, for the Pleiades, you want the moon conjunct the Pleiades on the midheaven, right? So like on the MC, you want the moon and the Pleiades, and that only happens, so many times a year. And then you also want the moon unafflicted, and so on. So you want a good election, and then at the right time, you have the materials. You want the right materials, and for the Pleiades, quartz is one of the materials. And then you do an invocation, and there are some traditional invocations. I believe the one for Pleiades is from the PGM. It's it's Hellenistic.
Okay.
And I haven't really delved too much into the PGM, but this is one invocation that comes from it. And there's some other invocations. I've used the Orphic hymns for different planets and so on. Or you can also use mantras or whatever you want to do. But you do the invocation, and you have like candles and incense. It's good to have the right incense to burn as well, so the right herbs to burn. And then you just make whatever you're going to make, the talisman, the oil, but
with the quickness so that
very
it's
quickness,
in that
it's
time
usually
frame.
a very short window.
Wow.
It's like sometimes I've had like 4-minute windows because you have to have all the right factors, and as soon as one of those factors is not there anymore. So for instance, like if I'm making like a Jupiter talisman, you want Jupiter on the midheaven or on the ascendant in the hour of Jupiter, while he's in his either exaltation or domicile, and you want him unafflicted. And so he's only on, and for me, on the MC or the ascendant, it's like within like a 5 to 8 degree window. So you have just those 8 degrees while he's rising, and sometimes the hour won't start until right, So you have to have all those factors in alignment, and that's that window. And usually it's 15 minutes, but sometimes it's an hour.
Right.
But
the hour would be preferable. I think. I would. Yeah. It's too much pressure to try and get it all right in one go.
Yeah, you have to prepare like everything ahead of time, get yourself like showered and in clean clothes and all your materials out and ready to roll. So as soon as the clock strikes go, you're ready to start invoking and lighting your incense and your candles and making the space ready and calling down those celestial entities.
And that's the one other thing is that like when I'm doing a talisman on stone, I only have time to do like a couple.
Yeah.
So
How
then,
do you mean on stone though? You mean you're carving something?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm
going
gonna
to cut like a little Dremel drill or something, just sort of carving.
Just a diamond tip stylus.
Oh my God! Wow.
So, and it doesn't have to be like beautiful. It can just be like scratches on the stone.
Okay.
So you generally you want to put in like an image. So this is like image magic. So you do an image on the stone, and then like the sigil of the planet or of the star, and then you fumigate it with the incense, the appropriate incense.
Is there a limit to how much oil you can do at a time? I mean, can you just do a big? I mean, what are you kind of making?
Yeah.
Would be an average batch, like sort of 5 liters at a time, or?
So one other thing is like we're kind of just getting started in doing the oils and so on, but there's Sphere and Sundry, Caitlin Kopic, who's Austin Kopic's wife. They've been doing it for a while, so we're kind of just like doing it, like they're the real the pioneers there, So I just want to head nod them. We're kind of experimenting with it, but we made like half gallon of oil last time.
I mean, oils, no. I mean, I make medicinal oils myself. I mean, people think, oh, it's just an oil, but it's a lot of work. And to get it right is an art form. I mean, I ruined a lot before I got really good at it. I mean, I'm very happy now. Like last week, I did a preparation with it was from Charaka, which is a very old Ayurvedic text on traditional medicine. And it was based on the muli daikon, the big long white root, like a radish.
Love them. Yeah.
It's basically a radish, ginger, and Thai ginger, all these and the herbs cooked into it. It took me 2 days to make it. I mean, it was really good, but the secret is just hardly any heat. You just cook and cook and cook. And there's always a temptation to turn it up because you think if I do it twice as hot, it will take half as long, but it never works. You literally got to wait and be patient. So there's a lot of patience, and it's a big alchemical process. It undergoes a lot of color changes. So I mean, do you see that with what you're doing when you're doing your your herbal oils? Are you sort of seeing a lot of changes, or?
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty amazing. Like you said, like a lot of trial and error has gone into it over the years, and I used to end up having some mold in my oils in the past when I like left them in just too long, or I've tried doing just like solar infused oils, like low heat. The thing that I'm really getting into now is the alcohol intermediary method. Have you heard of that one?
I don't really use alcohol so much, so that's
Yeah.
of my.
So basically, it's using a very, very small amount of alcohol. So if I have a half-gallon jar full of calendula,
Mhm.
I will like use the dried calendula, and then you add about a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of alcohol so that it's barely coating the herbs. It's not wet, it's not like a tincture. It's just enough to use a like chopstick or spoon and like shake the jar so that it's just coating the outside. Yeah, the alcohol intermediary method is, my new jam. It's creating like really bright colored oils, and I'm definitely convinced that it's the way
Mm.
for me. And so I've been using it to infuse my calendula oil, or when I make salve, I use calendula and comfrey. Um, and yeah, it's creating this beautiful, rich colored oil. So I feel like it is the alcohol, just even that little bit, even just like 2 tablespoons per a half-gallon jar
Mm.
over your dried herbs is enough to like change the game a little bit with oil. So
I think the other thing is it disinfects all the herb too. So if
yeah.
there's any like mold spores or anything, it gets rid of them. So
Yeah.
it makes it less likely to mold,
Yeah.
dries it out so there's less water if there's any water,
Hmm.
So yeah, it seems like a good way to do it.
And this is
What's
my big
your?
salve filter here.
Oh, that's it.
This
Is
is
it? That's.
it's like a giant crock pot. It's a candle wax melter, and it fits 10 gallons of oil. I don't usually fill it up all the way, but it usually makes about 400 salves at a time.
Mm.
And I do a big herb bundle with the calendula and comfrey after doing the alcohol intermediary method, where I put the herbs in the jar and put the alcohol over. And like I usually will blend them with a hand blender as well to get more like surface area. And then I put it in a big cheesecloth, double up the cheesecloth, drop it in there, let it sit on like very low on like 90 degrees for
Mm.
about 5 days. And then take out the herb bundle and add the beeswax and pour it with some essential oils.
Mm. I did not. What are you using as base oil? Are you sort of sesame or?
I actually use olive and coconut oil,
Okay.
about like 1 part coconut oil, 2 part olive oil, and then local New York beeswax. I sometimes use sweet almond oil. I make a massage oil for a local massage therapist. We do trades for massage and massage oil.
Mm.
And I like the sweet almond oil for massage. It has a nice, like, slick consistency. So,
Mm.
but
I was going to say with the, you're talking about the 90 degrees. That's almost like a little bit when we do the sesame in Ayurveda, they say cure it first. So you give it sort of 90 degrees for 2 or 3 hours. I mean, that's
mhm.
just if you're cooking it over and open. Obviously, you're doing it slightly differently, but they say to have that curing opens the oil. So there is a marked difference in it. Before you cook it, it's sort of sticky, but when
Yeah.
it's cooked, it just goes straight in and it feels kind of
Mhm.
dry after you've
Mhm.
massaged it into the skin a bit. So are you finding that's the same with the coconut and the mix you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. It goes on like a little oily at first, but then after a few minutes, it just seeps right into the skin and it leaves your skin super soft. And I feel like salves can be really tricky with consistency. Like so many times I've gone for a salve, tried someone's salve, and it's like really hard to get your finger in, or it's
Mm.
just like a melty mess. So
Mm.
I think the ratio of like beeswax and olive oil and coconut oil, which is a more firm oil, I've like figured out a good formula to make it a really nice consistency so it
Mm.
goes on smooth. And
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
mean,
melt too much either.
yeah.
That's the other thing. It gets really melty. Yeah.
Hmm.
you haven't been tempted to go into keeping bees then or anything like that yet?
We are lucky. Our friend Henry keeps bees, and he has about 30 hives on our property. So
Mm.
they get to, get all of the herbs, and we have tons of like wild goldenrod and different wild plants, hawthorn and apple trees in the spring. So um, he trades us honey for like a rent of like keeping the bees here, and it's his whole like business operation, so he just does all of it and I just buy beeswax from him. It's a good deal.
And
Yeah.
in like Ayurvedically, we say, honey is considered an anapana. It's like a good, great vehicle for herbs. So is that the same in the kind of Western tradition? Is how much of, if you're giving herbs or you're preparing stuff, do you do like honey pills or do you just take it with honey? Is there any tradition in that regard or?
The thing that I've done with honey is just infused herbs in honey. So especially like the water soluble aromatic herbs like tulsi and rose and calendula and lavender,
Chamomile.
chamomile. They do an elderflower honey is one of my favorites. They do really well. I have experimented even with some like fresh roots. Like I've done an elecampane honey, which is an incredible, really pungent. I combine the elderflower and elecampane as like an antiviral expectorant, like lung honey that you can add to tea. Violet flower honey is really
Mm.
nice. And I sometimes will just leave the herbs in the honey. A, because it's really hard to strain them out, and B, because when you're stirring in some like violet or lavender honey into your tea, it's actually kind of pleasant to have a few floating lavender
Yeah,
petals or
yeah.
violet flowers on top. So that's usually how I've incorporated honey. I have a friend that makes salve with honey in it, and it's lovely as well.
We also have one of our favorite new things that we learned a couple years ago is a garlic and elderberry honey. You
Wow.
make that in like August.
Fresh garlic, fresh elderberries, just covered in a jar with honey.
It's like purple and garlicky. It's like
So
it mellows
good.
out the garlic, and
Mm.
then the elderberry is it's just like sweet and garlicky, and it's really good for cold flu season, and it's
Probably
super.
the honey would be super energized as well because you're not kind of
Yeah.
like crops. If the bees are straying onto your property and then feeding, obviously you've got all organic and it's all herbal as well. So it's like a doubly
Mhm.
Yeah.
empowered because of the foraging is on your kind of herbal property, if you like. Your operation's quite unique in a way because you're doing lots of different things. You're obviously herbalist, you're permaculture, you're actually like the magical stuff, the astrology. I mean, it's quite a compendium of things. And on top of all that, you've got you're inviting people in. You're doing like is it once a year or twice a year? How many times a year you're doing like a big event? So you're inviting herbalists to come and do talks. How
Yeah,
often?
once a year. We've only done it 2 years so far, and we've had a few other like music shows and like a Halloween party in the barn. So we do some fun events like that. But yeah, so far once a year with the Plant Cunning Conference, and we invite about 15 speakers to come, and there's been about 120 attendees. And we get a big event tent, and then we have the barns for classes, and we do plant walks every session or woods and fungi walks, morning movement with yoga or qigong,
Mm.
and really good, delicious meals that Isaac mostly prepares with some volunteers.
But we're
Um,
we're not doing it this year.
yeah, so
Yeah,
this year
not 2025.
2025 we decided against it because we are actually having a wedding. We're getting married in the
Oh,
spring.
right. Okay. Okay. So
So
you'll
one
still be
big
inviting
event.
everybody. It'll just be a different.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we literally had that conversation. Like, do we have the wedding the day before the conference? So then we have all these people here and we get to like, it's too much. It's like different audiences. It's our families versus,
Mm.
the plant people. So we decided just to stick with the wedding and do one event and come back with the plant cutting conference in person next year. If there's interest, we might do a online conference, like an
Mm.
online plant cutting summit, because then we get to interview people from all over the world, people that wouldn't necessarily have been able to like fly out. And there are a lot of our listeners from all over the world that I think would be interested in it. So that's something that might be on the horizon.
Well, the other thing is that AC is starting a school with another
Yeah.
herbalist, aromatherapist, and we're gonna have a herb camp here
Yeah,
next
like a
summer for like 9 days.
9 day summer camp. So, incorporating a lot of different hands-on medicine making things with lectures on herbal medicine and aromatherapy. So that's another big event that we're doing here. So
How can
we
people
figure
find out
those two.
about that if they want? Is that going on the website or you do? Because you've got quite a big presence on Instagram as well. You've got like literally, it's a big. I mean, there's a lot of material on there, so people can go and look at that as well. But it's
Yeah, that the plant cunning on Instagram or on YouTube or on plantcunning.com. And I also have a website called travelingherbfarmer.com. And that's where we'll be on both the Plant Cunning and Traveling Herb Farmer, which is just my small product brand. I'll be releasing the links to the new website for Actea. Is the name of the herb school is the Actea Institute of Herbal Medicine and Aromatherapy, and I'm starting it with herbalist and aromatherapist Gabriel Moget.
Okay.
Very excited about that.
He's from the UK.
He's from the UK too. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
right,
yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
definitely have a look at that, and I can point people to that if they want to get
Thank you.
information.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I guess that hasn't been fully like.
This is the first I'm speaking about it to
Yeah.
the public. So it's been in the planning phases, but we're really excited about it. So we start off with the 9-day herb school in person, which is like the herb summer camp portion. And then we'll be doing an online portion every Sunday for 10 months for about 3-4 hours. So it'll be a chance for people who are already interested in aromatherapy and herbalism, maybe have some sort of background and like have already gone to herb school or have already studied different modalities. Maybe they're an acupuncturist or a nurse or something like that. We want it to be an advanced program for them to really be able to apply the herbal medicine and the aromatherapy knowledge to their practice. So there's going to be a lot of clinical case studies and a lot of hands-on medicine making. And I'm also going to be incorporating a lot of business planning. So kind of working with people on their individualized business plans so that they can really take it to the next step. Because I found going to herb school, after you graduate, it's sort of like there's this feeling that's ubiquitous among herb school graduates or aromatherapy school graduates. It's like, okay, what next? Like, what do I do? Am I ready to launch my business? Am I ready to like dive into this full time? And it can be a little intimidating, a little scary. So I want to have the school that and the program that I think would be super helpful to people who have already had some training, but they really want to take it to the next step. So that's our
Is this imminent? This is happening now, or is it just coming up?
It's gonna.
Yeah, we're in the planning phases now. We've registered the business and we're writing the prospectus and the curriculum now, and we'll be launching it in December. So,
okay, great. Fantastic. It's great. And I love that sort of hands-on stuff as well. It's nice to actually, get there, arrive, get a pestle and mortar out, start grinding stuff. It gets really practical. It's really interesting actually when I get students and come and, do basic stuff like an introductory to say like the alchemical stuff. The first thing you do is just get them used to grinding, because everyone thinks they know how to use a pestle and mortar until they actually use it. But it's quite funny watching people kind of, because you can tell a lot about somebody just by the way they grind something. I think it even says that in the Ayurvedic books, if you've got a student coming in, you're going to train him, the first thing to do is let them grind something, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. What job they do. If they get bored after 10 minutes and like, oh, can I do something else? It's like, maybe that isn't the person that you want working for you.
Yeah, totally. That's really true. Like herbal medicine in general is like a lot of repetitive tasks.
Do either of you do any extra diagnosis stuff? So you're doing any like tongue diagnosis, pulse?
That's actually my partner for the Actea Institute is really good with the TCM, tongue diagnosis, pulse diagnosis. And so I'm going to be learning more of that from him. I learned it a little bit in herb school at the Northeast School of Botanical Medicine with Seven Song, but I haven't actually like practiced it enough to apply it to my own diagnostics. But yeah, that's something that Gabriel excels at with that and the TCM energetics. So it's definitely my growing edge. It's something that I want to get more into, because how amazing is that? Just like how much you can tell from a person's tongue and face, even like the facial structure and the pulse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Isaac? Then doing a bit of an astrological analysis when people come, are you kind of offer? Is that on the table? Will that be part of your?
Yeah. I think we're going to do a little bit of that. I've seen a couple cases where AC's like, can you look at this person's chart? And so I'm finding that you can see a whole lot from the chart, what's going on, even just like, is Saturn transiting the ascendant? Like and then traditionally, you would probably want to use more ashwagandha. Or if Rahu's transiting the ascendant, you might want to use more calamus, stuff like that. But also, like, what's going, like, you can see so much from the chart and in terms of where the origin of the problem is. And if it's a problem that's like more fixed, we have like fixed, unfixed, and unfixed karma. You can see like how strong the karma is of what's happening, and if it's more easily remedied or not. And then if you need like more like Vedic remedies or karmic remedies rather than just like physical remedies too, And so that's, I think, where the karma doctor aspect of Jyotish comes in, is like seeing what level you need to be working on.
Yeah, I think people, if you particularly, let's say, yoga students or people that are interested in Ayurveda, I mean, they kind of know that the Jyotish or the astrology is there, but it may be something that's not so accessible for them. So if you can kind of combine it with something healing, like you're doing the herbal work, and you bring in the astrology as well, people get a real interest in it, because they see that it's not just, we all grow up with a perception of astrology, don't we? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was, your sun sign or whatever, but it's so much richer than that. And I think when people see how much you can use it and how useful it is, it really gets, just gets really fascinating. I find students who have come for Ayurveda and they end up wanting more. I was teaching some students at the Ayurveda college, and we started on Jyotish, and in the end, that's all it was. The people were interested in that. So, and it is fascinating. You can get really lost in it. So, are you finding that something that you're, are you kind of heading in that direction now? Are you going to develop that more, or?
Yeah. So. Well, yeah, and that's exactly what happened to my teacher, Freedom Cole. Like, he started out Ayurveda. He's like, oh, I need to learn Jyotish to practice Ayurveda, well. And 25 years later, he just focuses on the Jyotish. He got obsessed. I also like, in even in England in the 1600s up until 1700, all doctors had to know astrology. And most astrologers knew how to practice at least a bit of medicine. And like all the great astrologers from that time period were also doctors. Like William Lilly, like Culpeper. Those they were both. But yeah, I'm still a youngin I'm still learning. I'm doing a lot of charts now, and I'm opening them up. If people want me to read their chart, I'm open to doing that now. I don't have my website up quite yet, but I'm still doing it by like donation and by email me at info@plantcunning, and I'll find it, fit you in the schedule. But when I'm going to India this winter, coming back. Okay. I'm going to be studying in Puri, which is the heart of the tradition. When I come back, then I'm going to be like, okay, I'm ready. I mean, I've been ready for a while. Like I'm getting pretty good. I mean, I don't want to. I'm still a baby compared to somebody like Freedom or somebody like Andrew Foster.
Well, of course, there's always going to be somebody who knows more, and there's always going to be somebody who knows less. So don't.
But Freedom's teaching, like studying with him and doing these advanced classes with him, he's just such a good teacher. He's giving me the basics, not just the basics, but like the giving me the framework to understand like how to use all of the tools. Because like a lot of people don't even really know how to use the D9, let alone all the other divisional charts. And you like those divisional charts can tell you so much, so like fine-tuned information about somebody and like what's going on. And there's just so many other things like that, like the Bhataka. Like he teaches how to use the Bhataka, and like you can see when there's when there's ancestral issues, when there's bad spirits, like. What kind of spirit, what black magic, what kind of, who's doing it, you can see all this kind of stuff from using these things that are built into Jyotish, but a lot of people don't even really know about. So I really just want to respect Freedom for, and then his teacher Sanjay for making all this knowledge available. And then Freedom kind of really organized and distilled it in a way that for me, as a Mercury kind of person, is very helpful. So that he's given me a good framework and a basis to be able to to do this, the karma doctor stuff. But again, I'm still working at it.
Yeah, it's a big field. I mean, I just
Yeah.
dip in and out of it as I, as required. But what was a really good lesson for me is I had one of my friend who did the Western astrology. I had her teach me how to calculate manually, and it really gave me such an appreciation for the software.
Yeah.
Literally takes you like 45 minutes, 2 hours, up to 2 hours of fiddling around. It's done instantaneously. So you were saying about those traditional healers back in the 16th century. I think they were all doing that with their own ephemerids, and they were calculating it all by hand. I mean, I think you need to do it once or twice just to appreciate how difficult that
Yeah,
is.
definitely.
It's a monster task. So hats off to anybody that can do that. I learned it. I've probably forgotten it all now, so I just use software like everybody else. But it's important to remember how they were able to do that, and the knowledge that they were, calling on to be able to do that. Well, I suppose actually I didn't touch on, can they come and get the remedies direct from you, or how does that work? Would you be able to buy it online, or would they need to come and actually visit you to get stuff, or?
I do have my travelingherbfarmer.com website with some of my herbal products available, like my salves and tinctures and formulas, aromatic room and body sprays, lip balm, just some basic stuff like that. And then if people want custom formulas, they can also email at info@travelingherbfarmer.com or info@Plant Cunning. We have both of those.
But what about like international shipping? If somebody said from Europe, it happened to be watching this, would that be too much? Or
I haven't done too much international shipping, but for your listeners, I would do it.
Okay. It's just worth, because somebody will ask the question, so it's just worth asking the question.
Yeah, that would take an email, and I'd be happy to send something. Yeah.
Okay. So you can get that on the website, and then everything else. I mean, what about the conferences and your workshop that's going to be coming up? You're going to be putting that up. That information will be available. Instagram is like massive. I mean, that's obviously your kind of main. That seems to be your main kind of focus, is it? Or
yeah, we're on Instagram. That's pretty much our biggest following, but we also have YouTube. We also have TikTok, and our website, plantcunning.com, is kind of where we house the information about the conference. So that's a good way to get in touch, is checking out plantcunning.com or travelingherbfarmer.com.
Yeah, we put out like little reels on Instagram and TikTok and so on, and Instagram seems to be the place where they've gone more traction.
Yeah.
So
you can find us on Instagram at Plant Cunning.
Yeah, we're also on Facebook and so on. And just all our episodes are on YouTube, on Apple, Spotify, and that's kind of where we'll drop any announcements and so on too, is on the actual podcasts. But we'll also post them, because sometimes on social media, like a post will not get any. The algorithm won't grab it, and then nobody will see it. So we can make an announcement on Instagram, and then no one even sees it. But it's it's really kind of variable.
Yeah, and on plantcunning.com, you can sign up for our email list, and you'll be the first to hear about anything. So that's a good way to do it as well.
Yeah, and then if people want readings, I am offering readings, hour-long readings via Zoom. There's no shipping charge for that. So and that you can email me at info@plantcunning.com, and we'll set up a time. So
okay, that's great. Yeah, fantastic. And I recommend everybody check those out. It's really good. I like the podcast because I mean, sometimes I do like a couple of long journeys during the week. So I'll just be in the car driving and I have it playing in the background, which is nice. It's
awesome.
That's a good way to digest the information.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're driving, you're you need a bit of distraction. Not too much distraction, but some distraction.
Perfect. I love podcast and drive. Yes.
Yeah.
It's such a great combo.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. It's been amazing speaking to you. Thanks for coming on, and I think people would be really fascinated in what you're doing. And we'll put some pictures up, and I'll do all the links and stuff, and people can see what you're doing. And I think people would be really interested. So thank you again for coming along.
Thank you
for
Andrew.
having us on the show, and always nice speaking with you.
Yeah, we were looking forward to it, and this was great. So thank you.
Okay.
All right, enjoy your day. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.